I'm Ricky.
And I'm Joe, and this is Season 4, Episode 13 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast. It's slated to come out on October 11th, 2021, and we're going to just jump right into it. After our long break, we come to you bearing tidings of brewing and technology and wine, because that's what we're doing now. Well, that, and I'm also drinking coffee every now and then. So, Ricky, why don't you tell us about the wine?
Yeah, so I picked this up at the local farmer's market. This is Chatham Hill Carlos. It's a recipe from 1890. It says Chatham Hill Carlos wine is made from the beautiful bronze Scuppernong grape. The 1890 recipe has been passed down through the century. The Carlos wine has golden hue and silky smooth light and velvety finish. The best sweet wine in America. Which that's a pretty bold statement to put on your last line.
it is a very bold statement. I don't know if I agree with that last statement. It is a very good Scuppernong wine. Mm-hmm. It's very wet. It's not very leggy.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of tannins. So if you're wanting something that's a white wine, but also has a lot of depth of exploration and flavor and things like that, none of that. Is kind of a one-note wine. It's sweet, but it's grape sweet. So it's not like a bunch of sugar.
Yep.
Just added to grape juice, which I like. But yeah, this is pretty on par with something like the Firebrand. What's the ABV on it?
I think it's 12%.
Okay, that's about right for something like this.
Yeah.
You wouldn't really be able to tell that it's 12% necessarily. I think for a North Carolina wine that's a sweet Scuppernong type wine, this is one of the better ones. It doesn't have that kind of off flavor that a lot of Scuppernong wines have.
Yeah, what I really like about it is it's a really high acid wine, but it's got a very good acid profile. Mm-hmm. Like, it punches you. It's not citrusy. Just, if you've ever had something that's not like a citric acid in food, it hits your tongue hard, almost like a vinegar. But it's got such a pleasant flavor to that. It's not like off-putting, even though it is very sharp.
Yes, definitely. So tell me, you said there was also a red wine.
There is.
Yeah.
They do a red that I couldn't bring over because I couldn't find them at the farmer's market again in time before the episode. But the red's even better. So I want to bring that one over at some time because it does have more of those tannins. It got better depth of flavor. It's still also sweet. Both of their muscadines are very sweet. But overall, I'm kind of happy with both of them, especially because it's only like $16 for a bottle.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad price. If I could get it for 10, I'd say this is a great wine because this is kind of on par with like the Firebrand holiday wine, like as far as like flavor, like equality. I wouldn't say the profile's the same, but like, this is a sweet wine, that's a sweet wine, that one's spiced, this one's more acidic, but like in comparison between each other, if you're just comparing how deep they go into flavor, they're not very deep. They're kind of one note, but the one note they have is good. So if you're looking for something sweet to drink, this is a good one. And if you have a Chatham Hill or Chatham Hill, I think is how it's pronounced. But if you have that, available to you in your area, you should pick it up. Or if you're in North Carolina, you should grab one.
Yeah, it's certainly really nice. We could also grab some other things from them. They do some like blended wines that like half the. I won't say percentages because I don't actually know, but just you can see it like on the advertisement how they talk about it because they were doing a tasting there, where they've got like French grapes. They've got that juice brought in, or they're growing them themselves here and then mixing it in with like muscadine and other things. So it's kind of got like, it's like a champagne with a finish that they put onto it and things like that, which were all very nice. We tasted like 6 different things, all of which were good. These 2 muscadines just really stuck out because I won't say like muscadine wines aren't good. It's just it's harder to find a good one because there's so few of them that get made.
It is. It's much harder to find a really good muscadine wine, and it's really hard to find a good sweet wine like this. Yeah, there's Moscatos and things like that, but normally sweet wines that are, these like port, flavor wines or something like that, because I know that's like a whole category. Yeah, ports can be wonderful and delicious, but they're so much. You can only have a tiny amount. This is more of like something you could split a bottle with a friend and be happy with it.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did with the red. There was a little much to do all in one sitting, but in 2 sittings we just wiped out the bottle. You can almost treat it like table wine. Yeah.
So let's talk about our Skeeter Pee. I don't like that name anymore.
The more you say it, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I kind of expected this to be kind of like the lemonade mead that we made before, which was a little overly. It had that footy kind of.
There was definitely some sulfur to it. It was a hard fermentation.
Yeah. But I mean, even on top of that, it was like the lemon juice and everything. Just it didn't taste right.
Yeah.
There wasn't the right amount of sweetness and bitterness and sourness and everything to kind of like balance each other out. I feel like this recipe really, all the things that you love about lemonade on the back porch, it captures that. And the mead recipe that we adapted to be basically the same amount of sweetness, to be eaten through, that one did it even better because it has the residual honey sweetness after it. So I just, the name kind of.
Yeah, it's a weird name, but man, I mean, I gotta give props to the original recipe creator, or at least the recipe that we got. I'm not sure if that's the original, but they clearly put a lot of time and effort into balancing that flavor profile. Yeah. Because it is very nice.
Yes, it is. It's very nice. Especially for, I mean, what we spent like $20.
Yeah, it's not that expensive.
Yeah. I mean, of course you have to have the equipment and everything like that, but let's say that you have to buy the equipment. You have to buy a 5-gallon bucket. Your chemicals are about $10. So that's like $20. And then it's $20 worth of materials roughly. I don't want to say exact because things like that fluctuate. But let's say you're invested for $40 in all the stuff that you need to do it before bottling. At bottling time, you're going to have to spend another like $40 or so. But if you make a batch every time you run out of bottles, and you just have you collect all your beer bottles and stuff like that, because you're buying a bottle and you get free beer, at that point. If you do all that, then you're looking at being invested somewhere in the $60 range, maybe.
I mean, it's cheaper than like the ciders we make.
Yeah.
Because, you just buy that concentrated lemon juice. It's a lot cheaper than buying like 5 gallons of apple juice.
Yep. And the mead's only slightly more, hard to make or more expensive. It adds
just
like
the difference in price
$20, $30.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the difference in price between white sugar and honey.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think this is like, I can't wait until we're going to rack it today, bottle it, and then take the final gravity reading, do all that stuff, put the drops in to carbonate if we want to carbonate. So, because I think we talked about carbonating half of it and leaving half of it still. So we're going to do all that today, right after we finish this show, and then we'll be back in like 2 or 3 episodes to talk about how it,
and how it all tasted.
Yeah. Well, how it fermented, how it
the whole
carbonated, everything like that. So don't want to give away too much. But I do just want to let everybody know it's come along really well. We did it over the break, and it's been good.
Yeah, the tastings from going to primary to secondary were amazing. Even with no aging, no resting, no degassing, anything, it was good.
Yeah, absolutely. And it didn't really have the sulfur footiness to it.
Yeah, it really didn't. And that's I think, the most impressive part, because it's really hard to brew in these high acid conditions. You get a little bit too much lemon juice and it just kills you. And I kind of think that was the problem with our first lemonade mead. We went back and tried to like make a second one using like lemonade powder. That one was, overall it fermented better, but it didn't have the right taste. This hit that great balance. I mean, I wonder how many batches the first person had to make to get that ratio right.
Well, so the difference between the two things that we were doing, this is a wine, right? And we did a Mead, and all we did was just like substitute. But the honey that we chose, I think, is a big part of this at this point, because the first time we did it with wildflower honey, if I remember correctly.
We did it with orange blossom.
We did it with orange blossom?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's almost all I carry. That's what I got the big batches of. But I mean, regardless, I understand exactly what you're saying. Flavor profile, honey choice, and all that has a huge impact on that, even what type of yeast you get, because it leaves, its own flavors behind.
Yeah, and we used Red Star the last time and not EC111.
Yeah, so like flavor-wise, I'm kind of discounting that. I'm just saying like the roughness of the fermentation. Because the first one we had that came out, really footy, had a lot of sulfur to it. We had to let it degas for a while. We didn't have that problem with this one.
No.
Because it skirted, I guess, just on that line of being acidic but not too acidic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying there's a lot of variables.
Yeah. Flavor is its own monster. You got to try and tame.
Yeah, and we used some, because like last time we used what were the chemicals we used in it for was it Fermaid? Okay.
No, I had from the local brew store. They do what is essentially a vitamin mix. Which is like yeast hulls ground up with some extra supplements and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we didn't use that this time. We used just basically like really basic uric acid and yeast hulls with some tannin. I think I substituted some tannin in there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to doing it because it's rested. I feel like it's ready to go.
Yeah.
We'll test it here in a few minutes to make sure it didn't like do anything weird and we have to throw the batch out or something, but yep. So let's talk about that FIIO BTR3K you got sitting right there beside you. That's a Bluetooth 5.0 receiver and a USB-C DAC. So you can plug it into your computer and use it as a DAC. I've been using it for about a week. All of our business meetings that we've had at work, I've just been plugging in a set of headphones to it and using that because it's got a mic on it.
Yeah.
To do my thing. So I know what I think about it, but I'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I kind of like it. The audio quality for me was a little bit different in a good way. It was a little bit brighter, a little bit crisper, not to an insane degree. But what I really like about it is that there's really no quality loss between when I had the headphones directly wired in and when I was using the DAC. So like kind of all that stuff that can happen when you've got like a Bluetooth headset or something that's a little bit muddier, that wasn't really happening. And it lets you take a wired set of headphones and turn them into wireless headphones. Because there's always that price trade-off there. When you get like a really nice like Bluetooth headset, it's always more expensive than its like wired counterpart. So you could just say, all right, well, instead of getting this wireless headset, I'm going to take that extra money and get an even better wired headset and then make it wireless with this little dongle.
Yep. As long as it can, so it's got a limit on how much its amp can push, of course. But as long as it can push headset, I mean, and you've got anything that's like, low ohms, I think it's 2 ohms or something like that, up to, like 10 or 15 ohms. I'm not exactly sure what the range is on it because I didn't think about it until just now to look that up. So maybe I'll do that while we're talking about it. But, and of course, let me just put this out here. We're not affiliated with FIIO in any way. There's no sponsorship. I bought this with my own money. I just thought it was cool and I wanted to talk about it. But it has aptX HD, aptX LL, LDAC support, and a balanced output, which is really nice. And I don't know what the ohms are, so I'll look that up. But it's got a maximum amount of ohms, so you can't pair it with like a really hard drive. And I said 2 ohms a few minutes ago, but you can't pair it with a really hard driving set of headphones that need a lot of power. So, probably no Sennheiser HD 800s or 880s or anything like that. I think that's the right model. The ones that really need are Fostexes that need a lot of power or anything like that. But if you've got a pair of Sennheiser HD 598s, I think that's what those are, or those are 599s. if you've got a pair of those work really well with this. And you know, the brightness and the bassiness also all has to do with whether they're closed or non-closed, you know, all that stuff. But I felt like it's been a very good sound quality for listening to music, for everything, whether it's plugged in, you're using the DAC, or you're just, you know, comparing it to a similar source. Now, of course, if I'm going to something that's more like my shit stack, the Magni Modi, you know, kind of thing. If I've got that, then that, of course, is a better experience, I think, overall. But the convenience to experience for this is wonderful. And if you combine this with something that we'll talk about a little bit later, like the Sennheiser Bluetooth transmitter with a CD player or a iPod or something like that, you have a really great experience that you may not otherwise get because your phone is constantly going to try to bother you about stuff. You know, it's constantly going to update you.
You don't
People
put
are
that
going
do
to call.
not disturb on or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you put the do not disturb on, there's certain things that still come through. You know, I was I have do not disturb on. I was in a meeting, and you know, using this, and somebody called, and because the call came through on silence, it still just cut out my meeting.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So you don't have yours set up to ignore?
I did. I had it set up to ignore.
Really?
It was one of those calls that just
Interesting.
came
Yeah.
through because it's you know, you have your emergency contacts. It was from an emergency contact.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You got to go turn those off separately if you don't want the contacts to reach you.
Yeah. So you know, I hadn't done that. So you know, phones are set up in such a way now where they're not really intended to not have that experience. So if you want to decouple a little bit, you know, phones are great for convenience, but this gives you kind of a nice balance of that Bluetoothy convenience with, you know, either the Sennheiser or the AirFly. The AirFly will pair to it really nicely too. Okay. So I've talked about that before. The Bluetooth transmitter. You know, so when I'm like on a trip or something like that, I can plug, you know, like the AirFly in, take this out, and I've got my experience there.
Yeah, it's good to be able to transform those things, right? Because, like, even if you're, like, say you're in the situation, you've already got your really nice wired headset, but now you're going to get into, like, jogging outside or something that you really want to be wireless for, and you don't necessarily want to go buy another nice wireless headset. Well, you know, this thing is, like, what, $60, $70? I think
it's $69.
$69, yeah. So, you know, that's cheaper than a good pair of headphones that are wireless. So you can just, you know, take the stuff you already got, throw it in there, get a little bit better audio quality out of it anyway. Kind of a win-win situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I just do not have anything that I'm like, this is not good. Everything about it, I'm kind of like.
What's the battery life on it?
I haven't run out of batteries yet, and I've used it all day.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's also a loaded question, right? That's very dependent on the power requirements of your headset.
Yeah, but it's got it's a Bluetooth, you know, low E kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, I think the Bluetooth part of it probably lasts in a ridiculous long time. Your real factor is how much energy your headset needs.
Yeah, exactly. And so the battery in it's a 550 milliamp battery. So I mean, on something like this, it says that it should last about 9 hours, and that's like all day.
Yeah, pretty much.
Using it. Yeah, and that's not plugged in as a DAC because it charges if you plug it in as a DAC and everything like that. And you can use it while it's plugged in. It looks like it'll output on the 3 millimeter up to 80 ohms at 32 or 80 milliwatts at 32 ohms. Okay. Or 220 milliwatts at 32 ohms on the 2.5 millimeter. Okay. Yeah, so that's pretty respectable. Yeah. For a little thing like this. Now, I mean, this is the kind of small brother of the BTR5, which, I actually said that wrong. It's 25 milliwatts at 32 ohms or 78 milliwatts at 32 ohms.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still really respectable.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're right. Unless you're like a power user with a really like specialized set of headphones, your headphones are probably going to work with this.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, these Sennheisers sound great. I've got a pair of the Audio-Technica 25s, I think. I don't know. I don't remember the model number, but I've got a pair of those on, and they sound good through this too.
Yeah.
That's what I'm using to monitor the podcast as we're talking. And I also said things wrong. So the working time is 11 hours, not 9 hours.
Okay.
And
getting better.
The battery is smaller at 330.
Okay. But still, though, if you're averaging 11 hours, what does it matter, right?
Yeah.
Like, at that point, that's a whole work day. I mean, for most people, that's a whole work day and your commute. Mm-hmm. If you were going to, like, put this in between, like, your car stereo or something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can do a lot of, like, really neat stuff with it. And in the car stereo, you could just plug it in.
Yeah.
So I'm very impressed with it. I think if anybody's looking for a Bluetooth receiver for whatever reason, they should totally check this out. And like I said, there'll be a link in the show notes below, so feel free to buy it. We don't get any compensation off of it. Just do it because it's good.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Windows 11 and some of the junk that it's been getting. Have you been following that?
Not too heavily, but I heard a little bit of it. And I did some research before the podcast.
Okay. So what does your research say?
Most of my research is a lot of people kind of getting up in arms about potential security vulnerabilities that kind of all boil down to normal stuff anyway. On a technical end, the biggest complaint I've seen is they're sharing a lot of code bases with Windows 10, which that's incredibly normal. Every operating system built off of its old code. But then the rest of it is all very valid security concerns, but they're user-driven. It's like these are some known malwares we've seen people trying to push out, trying to mark a file saying, oh, this isn't compatible. It needs the new Windows 11 alpha or something like that to get you to click on that thing to run their script and, get your malware on there, that's still a legitimate vulnerability, but that's not a Windows 11 vulnerability, That's tricking people into something because something's new out and preying on their lack of knowledge about it.
So actually what I'm referring to with this topic is that Windows 11 takes all the things that Windows 10 did to like make you conform to the platform and then turn on all of their telemetry and marketing and ad based stuff on their platform to an 11. So it just like ramps it up.
Oh yeah. It's definitely a very like Apple software as a service style OS, which I'm not a big fan of. No. That's why I'm not really that interested in upgrading.
Yeah, I'm not that interested in upgrading. I feel like at some point they're probably going to try to push you like they did Windows XP users to Vista. And so, I'll see how that turns out. I would predict that they're probably going to be like, well, we'll give you a free Windows upgrade.
Oh, yeah, they already said they're going to do that.
Yeah, and all this other stuff. And, they're going to make it timed. They're going to try to pressure people to do it. And then they've already called, that Windows 10 is going to be end of support like they did Windows, 7. So I'm expecting that at some point you're going to have no choice but to upgrade. And one of the things that's killer about it, because the way that so privacy concerns aside, because of the way that they're implementing their TPM chip requirements, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not against a TPM chip requirement, but the way that they're marketing and pushing this, operating system, I definitely don't want to be one of the early adopters on my main rig.
Yeah.
Because my main rig is a gaming rig. The laptops and desktops that I personally own that are mine, except for my gaming rig, are all Linux based. For this very reason, I like being able to, have the freedom to choose what I want in the system. If I don't like it, like I kind of push myself off to the other thing. Not saying Linux is always better than Windows or anything like that. I mean, there's pros and cons to both. That's just my preference. But with my gaming machine, I don't want to be one of the first people to get on this and then have my performance for my games tank because Windows is doing some screwed up stuff to try to pull all the Facebook-esque data out of whatever they can to sell it to their partners so that they can make an extra buck on the operating system they've already, they might have given to me for free, but more than likely I had to pay an exorbitant amount anyway for it.
Yeah, new copies will certainly cost you quite a bit.
Yeah.
I really agree with a lot of that. I was an early adopter of Vista, and that got me off of ever being an early adopter for an OS again.
Yep.
That was a very painful experience. I don't know. It's one of those things where, like, a lot of softwares I will be an early adopter for because I know how important that role is. Being someone that's there, especially if you're technical, and if a problem happens, you don't panic. You don't run to support. They need to fix it right now. I've run plenty of systems past their end of support date. I've never had to call Windows support or really any support ever because we're technical people. I handle that stuff myself. So I know I'm valuable in that regard, but OSs are just so complicated and the softwares that run on them are so vast. Mm-hmm. You can't test them all. And you're 100% right. For all you know, look, they've tested everything they could think to test. You slap it on, you boot up your favorite game, and some driver incompatibility is there. I think about in Vista, there was all that Arrow stuff.
Yep.
That just mulch performance.
Yep.
That sort of stuff can happen again.
And
so
it seems like right now, based off of the kind of beta builds of Windows 11, that compared to Windows 10, which this is an optimization thing, but it's got to do with the way that they're implementing this kind of marketing thing that they're doing. I know that's vague. I'm not making any accusations. So, don't take this as like tech news, that this is your first source. If you want to learn about like the nitty gritty of it, either go research it yourself or go to like Linus Tech Tips where they do like a dedicated video on this. I'm just talking about the topic like kind of from my perspective.
Yeah.
But I don't want to see a 15 to 20% reduction in my very expensive gaming computer right now. So I'm not going to, for that reason, I'm not going to upgrade to Windows 11 right off the bat. I may do it just on because right now I've got two gaming computers. I've got my one that I bought with the 3080 and then I've got my one that I've had a 2070 in for a while. Mm-hmm. So I'll probably upgrade the 2070 and see how that affects this older machine. It doesn't it has software TPM, all that other stuff. And then I'll probably leave the 3080 because if the 2070 loses a little bit of performance, I'm not going to care as much, but I'm going to be really like teed off if my 3080 does.
That's always the hard part of having a custom computer, right? So like Windows to an extent makes the drivers for the machine. Really only for generic hardware, which that's always a crapshoot anyway. Because if you're using the generic drivers, the manufacturer doesn't even make drivers. So you're just completely beholden to whatever happens on it. I remember getting quite a few cases early in my career about things exactly like that. Mm-hmm. OS changed. Now none of their generic driver software stuff really worked that well anymore. And in custom machines, your manufacturer for your parts has a decision to make of are they going to go back? And clearly, they're cutting edge stuff. They'll put a lot of time in. But if you've got that 5-6-year-old motherboard or that 3 or 4-year-old graphics card, I mean, they're probably using a tool to generate those drivers. They're not honeycombing them. They're not going in and doing huge performance tests on old hardware.
Well, so the motherboard and everything like that. Okay, yeah, sure, fine. It's still one of the most popular.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying like your personal equipment. I'm just saying like in general, if you're someone who owns a custom computer, especially if it's on the older end, like the one I just retired this year, switching to a new operating system is not necessarily smooth. It's really beholden onto what effort has been put in, and especially the early stages when they don't have a lot of testers. Who knows what that's going to look like? Gets you back into that Arrow situation where tons of stuff was breaking down constantly because they didn't know how to handle that new graphics layer.
Yeah, well, but the thing I think here is this isn't something that's necessarily about how drivers don't work, because fundamentally Windows 11 is using a lot of the same stack that Windows 10 is for that, if I'm understanding the technicals of it correctly.
Yeah, the code bases are pretty similar.
Yeah, so it's not so much, it's like Windows 10 originally and Windows 7 used a lot of the same code base for that, because you're able to take the drivers from 7 and put them into 10 pretty much for the most part at the beginning. And that changed over time, of course, but right now that seems to be the case with 11 and 10. More, I'm talking about that there seems to be a prioritization of what Windows 11 will do with the processes that it's using, if I understand correctly. And so all the marketing data gathering stuff takes out prioritization over the front and center thing that you're doing. And they're using, sorry about that, everybody. I bumped the mic. But they're using this to like be able to take away power from, whatever your front and center application is, and push it off to those
performance optimization stuff. Yeah, and that's always, it's been a little bit of a crapshoot. I've had a couple times in my career I've needed to go and like do the manual setting of how high on the priority list certain processes are.
And I think they've taken that away with this. That's one of the big problems.
Oh yeah, if they've done that, that's a serious no-no.
Yeah.
That's one of those things I actually don't expect it will affect like gaming computers that often, because they generally have a surplus of resources. But I think like those budget machines, especially I think about like a lot of engineering machines doing things like AutoCAD and stuff. That'll
be a huge impact on those. But it is reducing the gaming performance in most AAA games, like Tomb Raider and stuff, by about 20%.
Really?
On high-end graphics cards.
Wow, that's crazy. I would think, because all optimization does for those is give resource availability preferences. So for you to be seeing degraded performance, it means you are hitting the upper limits of, well, basically your resource capacity, which is a little bit odd, I guess, except for maybe, now that I'm talking about it, most of these people taking these sort of performance metrics have other software that is taking those metrics for them while they play, so there might be some conflict there. Maybe it's giving more prioritization to those applications that are recording these statistics, and so they're dropping the game down.
But I don't think so, because if you do the same thing with the same software on Windows 10, you get 20% more performance.
Well, no, but that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, if they've built in this new optimization stuff that you can't control, is it falsely optimizing your benchmark tools and not the game?
It seems to be that the processes that it's optimizing for are all around the data scraping engines that Microsoft has in Windows
I just
11.
can't imagine. I mean, like, how badly does this have to be written that's a performance issue?
Well, so evidently the Windows 11 beta tester, bug tracker team doesn't exist anymore. Same thing with like Windows 10. Yeah, they cut that out. So who knows?
Yeah, that just almost blows my mind to think that your data collection is that resource intensive.
Now this is pre-production, software, so that could change. So I'm not.
It could. But I mean, there's bad implementation things you can see. Like if it's sticking to the gaming stuff, because I think our audience is maybe more exposed to that. A lot of the gaming stuff we talk about, I think about when the new BattleNet launcher thing came out. That was just a crap show.
Oh yeah,
because it was essentially a standalone web page built into it.
Built into a custom browser.
Yeah, which just mulched performance. Having to deal with all that like network layer web stuff when it could have just been, actually written in a language that it was meant for. So maybe it's something like that. Maybe a lot of this data recording utility is somewhere in that higher application stack. It's doing a lot of network stuff. It's doing a lot of browsing stuff, a lot of web stuff.
Yep.
Built in HTML and PHP instead of like C++ or something.
I think that's probably the situation. So, I mean, exactly why I was like, I think this would be an interesting thing to talk about, because I understand, like, if it's just poorly optimized and it's choosing like the wrong software to optimize. Okay, I get that. Like, you're trying to optimize the streaming software that doesn't need as much optimization as like the game. That's stuff that can get worked out in code. But if you're intentionally de-optimizing everything or deprioritizing everything else, because you want to optimize and prioritize your money making thing, when these customers they're kind of paying customers anyways.
Yeah.
That is going to push people off that you probably don't want people to be pushed off by.
Yeah, that's going to be really hard because Windows makes on the consumer non-enterprise, like, I don't know what you call them, like residential or whatever customers. The real money they make there is just on market dominance.
Yeah.
It's like most people have Windows, so most people are buying Word. You make your money at Word or Office 365 or any of this other stuff. You don't have to make that much on your operating system. So to see them go that direction is a little odd to me. I mean, sure, like everything takes a little bit of your data and use it. Even if they don't sell it, they use it internally to know what products people want to use and want to buy, usage, statistics and stuff like that. But to prioritize those things just seems really weird because I feel like it doesn't need to be. Like, that does almost scream to me like this has to be like a constant data stream when it could just be collection. And then every so often, upload. Once the resources drop back down, you've got access.
I think they want it to be constant. I think they want it to be.
It's the same data.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes me wonder what they're really going to try and do with it. Because if it's just data collection and then just metrics runs and stuff like that, that doesn't need to be real.
So I think there's three things that they're probably going to do. Probably one is like a CSAM type thing where they're going to try to scan all the files on your computer. And if you've got something that's not supposed to be there or illegal, you're going to they're going to upload that. They're probably going to use that same engine to have some way of being able to identify possibly pirated or user-made content that might get flagged, and then they can either remove or send that information to Sony, or because they've done that before, right? And then the third thing is I think that they're probably trying to gather in the moment data that could get overwritten if you leave your computer offline. So like if you're not playing an MMO, you're not playing this, you're not playing that, and you're playing a game or you're downloading stuff or you're doing things where you don't have constant internet availability, even though you may have the internet available, you're taking your machine offline for whatever reason. Yeah. If that's the case, or you're caching something or something like that, having this constant telemetry allows for that to not be local on the machine and possibly be taken off or removed. Like they can gather that and do something. And it might be nefarious, might not be. Yeah. It might be something where they're trying to do something like, well, for all these good reasons, we're trying to do this. But they could also be doing things that, the privacy concerns are there. Yeah. Like, I totally get it. And I've struggled with some of these same things, like in my personal job, like having to both collect data, but, keep people's stuff private. And there's a balancing act there. But companies like Microsoft and Google and Amazon have not, Google more so than the other two, but they still do not have the track record to say we should be able to do this. I mean, Microsoft does have some things though, like in their Xbox controllers, for instance. I was listening to Linus Sebastian from Linus Tech Tips talk about this earlier this morning. He was talking about how you can still, in all of the Xbox controllers, replace the battery in them. That's unheard of for the most part globally. And it uses standard batteries. It's not some sort of specialized thing that becomes e-waste. They're all rechargeable, all replaceable, standardized AA batteries. That's pretty awesome. But then you have something like this Surface Book that's sitting here that is not as easily replaceable and more welded together.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft's got a better track record than most, but I guess I'm more concerned about, and maybe this is the nerd in me, the optimization of all that. Because that should be such a lightweight process. I'm hoping that's like a bug. They've messed something up. It's going too far, because I just can't imagine like something like data collection that you already got access to being such a performance hog. Yeah. I mean, most of the things that you think about that are like classic resource hogs, like certain web browsers and stuff like that, is because they are enforcing I need this much memory to run. I'm going to have it available beforehand. Every time there's a new tab, it's actually a new process, even though it's in its own window and stuff like that. But like data collection, even as a stream, is so light.
Yeah.
So who knows? I guess time will tell, right?
Yeah.
We'll find out what's going on with that. But that seems like something that should have really been squashed before the first because I think like last week it dropped, right? Like you can get it now.
Well, it's
alpha, but you can still get it.
Yeah, well, it's beta.
Yeah.
It's the beta, but you can get the production's coming up like in like a week and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're on their whatever early adopter thing.
You can like buy it in stores, like coming up in like a.
No, I mean like last week. Because I am part of their beta for
yeah.
like their browsers and stuff.
Yeah, you can totally, you've been able to get it for a couple of weeks. Like as far as like the Windows 11 like beta that you could be part of. And,
yeah. Well, it's open now is what I'm saying. Like anyone can grab it.
Yeah.
That was like October 5th.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's the end of this episode, unless you got something else to say about that.
No, I think I'm
good. Check out the Chatham wine, Chatham Hill wine, the Carlos. It's a pretty good thing to drink. Otherwise, we have a Patreon and a Twitter, and we'd love for you to engage with us there. We do appreciate anybody that gives us suggestions or anything like that. So we'd love to hear from any of our patrons or anyone that's got any thoughts on, just things for the podcast topics. But this has been the October 11th, 2021 episode of Beer and Broadband, Season 4, Episode 13. And we'll catch you next time.